A European master locksmith dedicated his entire life to crafting 4 safes with state-of-the-art security. However, in a surprising turn of events, he locked himself inside one of them and sank to the bottom of the deep sea. The locksmith had poured his heart and soul into his research, hoping that a chosen one would eventually appear to unlock his masterpieces. Regrettably, it took hundreds of years for a person with a connection to the safes to finally emerge. Ironically, it was just an ordinary bank teller named Sebastian. In his spare time, Sebastian recorded videos showcasing his lockpicking skills, hoping for recognition. He possessed the technique to crack a lock in just 8 seconds. However, these videos received no attention after being posted online. Sebastian felt depressed and helpless. He could only continue his boring, repetitive job at the bank, feeling as though his life was imprisoned in a tedious cage. But then, a twist of fate arrived unexpectedly. One day, a comment appeared under Sebastian's video like a lightning bolt in the dark night, making him extremely excited. The comment read, "Do you want to test your skills? The password to join is Götterdämmerung." As soon as he saw the phrase Götterdämmerung, Sebastian immediately recalled the legendary story of the safe of the same name by locksmith Hans Wagner. The masterpiece had sunk to the ocean floor along with its creator. Opening Hans Wagner's 4 divine safes was the lifelong dream Sebastian chased. Without hesitation, he immediately set off for the competition venue, full of hope. However, upon arrival, Sebastian felt incredibly let down. The venue turned out to be a secret underground location. What disappointed him even more was that there was no Götterdämmerung safe there at all. Sebastian felt discouraged, unaware that this competition would completely change his life. Before he could get his bearings, Sebastian was swept into the contest. When the referee announced the start, the other contestants quickly rushed into the dramatic lockpicking battle. Sebastian alone stood bewildered, not yet adapted to the sudden situation. Time passed quickly. By the time Sebastian came to his senses, 2 contestants had already successfully opened their locks with incredible speed. He realized he could not hesitate any longer if he didn't want to be eliminated. Sebastian quickly focused, using his skillful techniques to pick the lock. At the very last moment, he excellently surpassed his opponents, securing 4th place and advancing to the inner round. The second round was incredibly tense and dramatic. The 4 remaining contestants continued to rush into the lockpicking challenge at breakneck speed. The difficulty of the safes in this round had multiplied, making everyone apprehensive. However, surprisingly, the long-haired player once again opened his as quick as lightning. The first person to succeed looked smug, as if declaring his championship ability to the world. But Sebastian was no slouch. Like a resilient lion, he followed closely behind, opened the safe, and proceeded straight to the next round. The battle for the championship between the 2 took place immediately after. The referee solemnly announced the rule. If neither could open the safe, it would be a draw. The long-haired guy smirked disdainfully, looking sure of victory and completely disregarding Sebastian. As soon as the starting whistle blew, the long-haired guy rushed into the battle like a bolt of lightning. Sebastian's actions surprised everyone. He just stood quietly observing what his opponent was doing. It turned out the safe in this round had an extra layer of soundproofing, making it harder to hear the gears moving. But the long-haired guy had anticipated this. He quickly took out a sound amplifier with a self-satisfied look. Sebastian remained calm. He placed his hand gently on the lock, focusing on sensing the internal structure of the safe. He used his heart to deeply feel the mechanism inside. The audience looked confused by Sebastian's actions. Many shook their heads in weariness. Yet Sebastian did not rush to open the lock. He even started a conversation with his opponent, confusing everyone even more. Everyone thought Sebastian had given up. Time kept passing. The countdown clock showed less than a minute left, yet Sebastian continued to bother his opponent. Just as the clock hit the final 30 seconds, Sebastian finally took action. He calmly turned the dial like a seasoned master. The gears inside the safe moved with his every manipulation, creating melodious sounds like a piece of music. He moved gently and gracefully, as if performing a work of art. To everyone's astonishment, Sebastian opened the safe easily. The whole room exploded in thunderous applause. Sebastian became the center of attention. Amidst the crowd, a beautiful and cold woman caught Sebastian's eye. She stood there, haughty and mysterious like a snowflower blooming on an icy peak. Sebastian felt an indescribable emotion rising in his heart. He could not have guessed that this woman would completely change his life. Although he didn't meet the safe of his dreams, this competition was like a storm that suddenly hit, stirring up Sebastian's peaceful life. It once again affirmed his exceptional talent, and his life was about to turn a new page. The next morning, as usual, Sebastian went to his familiar coffee shop and ordered a coffee. As he turned around, he was startled by a strange voice. The hot coffee spilled all over Sebastian, making him extremely angry. Sebastian intended to lose his temper, but then froze when he realized the woman in front of him was the mysterious person he had met the night before. It turned out this woman, Gwendolyn, was the one who had registered Sebastian for the competition. She revealed herself to be an international jewel thief, leading a gang specializing in international bank robberies. Hearing this, Sebastian broke out in a cold sweat. Gwendolyn expressed admiration for Sebastian's talent and invited him to join her team. Sebastian thought she was joking. He was an honest citizen. How could he get involved with criminals? But Gwendolyn was in no hurry. She calmly explained that their target was the 4 divine safes left behind by the master locksmith, Hans Wagner. Hearing this, Sebastian's eyes lit up, his heart filled with curiosity. Gwendolyn stated bluntly that she wanted to decode this centuries-old mystery. Afterward, Gwendolyn gave Sebastian a business card and told him to think carefully and contact her. After 2.5 days of hesitation, Sebastian decided that opening safes was much more interesting than going to work. He found his way to the villa at the address on the card. Surrounding the villa was a mysterious atmosphere, as if hiding countless secrets. Sebastian summoned all his courage to knock. The person who opened the door was Gwendolyn. At this moment, Sebastian officially stepped into a world full of mystery and danger. His fate was about to change, dizzyingly. Gwendolyn introduced the team members to Sebastian. First was Karina, a beautiful and talented hacker. Next was Rolf, a professional driver with god-tier driving skills. Finally, there was Brad Cage, the team's martial arts expert, a large, muscular, and powerful man. After the introductions, the group got straight to the point. Karina had spent 3 years gathering information and finally found the whereabouts of 3 of the 4 safes left by Hans Wagner. The first safe was the mysterious Rheingold, currently hidden in a small bank in Paris, France. It was designed with a complex locking system with up to 413 million combinations. However, among the 3 safes, the Rheingold was considered the easiest to open. The second safe was named Valkyrie, proud and inviolable like a goddess, located in a heavily guarded bank in Prague, Czech Republic. It possessed a locking system with a massive number of combinations reaching 235 billion, a number that would overwhelm anyone. The third safe was named Siegfried, like a silent monster. The third safe lay hidden in a casino in St. Moritz, Switzerland. It possessed a colossal combination count of up to 73 trillion, truly an astronomical figure that made people feel hopeless. As for the fourth safe, Götterdämmerung, it remained completely unheard of, like a ghost. Its whereabouts were still a mystery. It was like a mysterious legend, full of temptation and challenge, dubbed the hardest safe to conquer. Time was running out, so the group immediately set off to execute the plan. The group of super thieves quickly moved to Paris and secretly hid near the target bank. A dramatic and dangerous mission was about to take place. Sebastian was the first to deploy. He would play a key role in this play. Sebastian skillfully disguised himself as a passerby, pretending to be desperate to run into the bank to relieve himself. Then he calmly waited for the next signal. Immediately after, Gwendolyn appeared with a mysterious look, carrying all sorts of things, walking into the bank naturally as if nothing was happening. Taking advantage of the moment the guard opened the door, she quickly swiped the keyring from his belt. Gwendolyn approached the counter, using a pre-booked alias to request access to a safe deposit box. She easily bypassed the distracted teller. The teller suspected nothing and led this mysterious guest into the bank vault. She didn't know she had fallen into a trap set in advance. It was Karina's turn to appear. She approached the bank staff with a charming demeanor, pretending to ask about services in English. The manager didn't understand English, so he called the teller standing in the lobby to assist. Seizing this opportunity, Karina created a perfect cover for Gwendolyn. She skillfully stalled, chatting with the teller to buy time for her teammates. Meanwhile, Gwendolyn sneaked out of the vault to rescue Sebastian, who was sitting on pins and needles in the restroom. Both went into the elevator, using the guard's keys to unlock the button for the basement gold vault. When the elevator doors opened, a blinding light emitting from the Rheingold safe left both of them stunned. The safe appeared with a magnificent and majestic appearance, like a priceless work of art, exuding a mysterious beauty and power that overwhelmed onlookers. However, instead of immediately starting to pick the lock, Sebastian stood there frozen as if hypnotized, admiring the artwork before him. Gwendolyn, impatient, hurriedly pulled Sebastian out of his trance, because time was short. To add gravity to the event, Sebastian pulled out his phone and played a majestic piece of music. This unique action made Gwendolyn stare in surprise. The melodious music rang out in the quiet space of the basement, creating an interesting contrast to the tense atmosphere. Sebastian pressed his ear to the lock, focusing on listening to the smallest changes inside the safe, as if he could hear every note emitted from each moving gear. In this suffocating atmosphere, time seemed to stop. Yet after only 2.5 minutes, Sebastian miraculously opened the safe like a talented magician. At that moment, Sebastian trembled with joy, his eyes sparkling with the thrill of victory. Inside the vault, cash was piled up, radiating an irresistible attraction, but the group only took 2 bags of money as a token. Their goal was not plunder, but to conquer the inviolable safes, to etch their names onto the golden roll of the world's super thieves. At this moment, Brad Cage appeared with a cool demeanor, charging straight into the bank. He deliberately caused a commotion to distract the staff's attention. Sebastian quickly returned to the restroom and sneaked out of the bank. Under Brad Cage's cover, Gwendolyn also returned to the vault area from the basement. The group fled far away like ghosts, completing the mission spectacularly amidst suspense and thrill. However, this robbery immediately attracted the attention of Interpol. Seeing familiar faces on the surveillance camera, the police chief instantly realized this was the criminal gang he had been tracking for a long time. He hadn't expected them to dare show their faces in Paris. With extensive experience and sharp intuition, the chief deduced that the robbers' true target was Hans Wagner's masterpieces, and this was related to the mythical tetralogy, the Ring of the Nibelung. Thus, the police chief held the key to decoding this mystery. He quickly figured out the next safe the gang would target. A tense and dramatic confrontation was about to begin. Not long after, the group of super thieves appeared in Prague, Czech Republic. Their target this time was the Valkyrie safe. They didn't know they were gradually stepping into a dangerous trap. Interpol had set up a dragnet around the bank, waiting for the prey to fall into the trap. For the super thief group, this was an unprecedented challenge. This bank was not an ordinary bank. It was strictly guarded like a solid fortress, every corner hiding deadly dangers. Yet, that mysterious safe was like a giant magnet, attracting Sebastian powerfully, making him disregard the danger to embark on this thorny path. This time, Sebastian disguised himself as a bank employee, using sophisticated fake documents to easily bypass security. At the same time, Karina hacked into the bank's security system, forging an access card. The fake ID actually opened the access gate successfully. Sebastian calmly walked inside the bank. Following Karina's instructions, Sebastian swiped the card to open the door. A beep sounded like a signal for action. He stepped into the elevator to the 4th floor. At this time, Gwendoline had also infiltrated the bank, under the guise of a senior secretary. Interpol was still lying in ambush outside, unaware of their presence. When Sebastian stepped out of the elevator, an iron gate blocked his way. To avoid detection, Karina signaled Sebastian to pretend he was unlocking it while she controlled it remotely. A small click sounded, and the gate unlocked. Sebastian tried to stay calm as he walked through the gate, and he was overjoyed to see Gwendoline waiting there. Both quickly entered the elevator, heading straight down to the underground vault. However, as soon as the elevator doors opened, their hearts clenched when they saw 2 security guards standing watch. The atmosphere became extremely tense, but Gwendoline did not hesitate. She took down the 2 guards in the blink of an eye. Gwendoline's decisive, neat strikes left Sebastian amazed. Finally, they stood before the powerful Valkyrie safe. Sebastian opened his phone, and a majestic melody rang out like a prelude to the legendary story about to be continued. He passionately told Gwendoline about the content of the Ring of the Nibelung tetralogy. It was a colorful myth, every detail hiding a magical attraction that captivated people. Sebastian was convinced that the way to unlock this safe was based on the sequence of the myth, then repeating from the beginning, like decoding an ancient riddle. Meanwhile, the special task force was still waiting wearily outside the bank, without detecting any suspicious signs. The police chief felt extremely angry and anxious. With sharp intuition, he judged that the robbers had started acting. He immediately led the task force to storm the bank, determined to arrest the gang. At the same time, the bank's security staff also discovered anomalies on the surveillance screen. They were horrified to see Sebastian using his finger to open the iron gate. The security captain immediately realized their system had been hacked. He didn't hesitate to press the alarm button. All exits of the bank were sealed, trapping Sebastian and Gwendoline. In a situation hanging by a thread, Brad Cage decided to execute Plan B. He quickly armed himself, put on a mask, and rushed into the bank to rescue Sebastian and Gwendoline. When the police chief led the task force into the bank, they were stunned. The safe here was not Hans Wagner's safe. It turned out the bank's management had secretly moved it to a more important branch. The police chief hurriedly led his men to that branch. Brad Cage, like a ghost, used a tranquilizer gun to take down the security guards. He quickly controlled the bank lobby, distracting everyone to give Sebastian more time to open the safe. Sebastian took a deep breath, pressed his ear to the lock, closed his eyes, and slowly turned the dial. Every movement was extremely careful, as if playing the notes of fate. Only the sound of gears moving softly rang in Sebastian's ears. He thought everything would go smoothly as before. But just as he was full of hope, The dial suddenly retracted deep into the safe, as if this silent guardian had realized Sebastian's intent. This unexpected incident left Sebastian stunned. Countless guesses flashed through his mind. Sebastian decided to close his eyes, trying to sense the internal structure of the safe, as if groping for a fragile ray of hope in the dark. But then a miracle happened again. The dial suddenly popped back out. Gwendolyn witnessed this scene with a stunned look, unable to believe what was happening before her eyes. Sebastian sternly said that if he made a mistake one more time, the safe would lock permanently. He hadn't expected the internal structure of the lock to be much more complex than he imagined. Sebastian understood that this was the only chance to conquer this safe, and he had no way back. He focused intensely, pouring all his mind into decoding the safe. At the same time, Brad was trying to control the situation in the lobby. Every second that passed was tense and dangerous. When the security captain discovered the anomaly on the surveillance screen, he didn't hesitate to press the alarm. The ear-piercing siren sounded like the call of the Grim Reaper, signaling that the police would arrive soon. Time passed second by second. Sebastian was still racing against time to unlock the safe. He turned all the dials in the order of the myth. Each turn was like a gamble with fate. But then all 3 dials retracted inward simultaneously like 3 cold swords stabbing straight into Sebastian's heart. He was so tense he almost suffocated. Gwendolyn worriedly asked him what happened, but Sebastian had no mind to answer. He stepped closer to the safe like a lone warrior entering battle. He closed his eyes, slowly turned the lock, praying for a miracle. Time seemed to stop. Space seemed frozen. Finally, after a long tense silence, Sebastian used all his strength to pull the safe door. He had succeeded miraculously, as if the goddess of luck had smiled at him at the last minute. A dramatic and legendary end to this breathtaking adventure. Receiving news that Sebastian and Gwendolyn had succeeded, Brad Cage hurriedly told Rolf to prepare the car to pick them up. But just as he intended to run out, the security captain suddenly appeared, blocking his way with a gun in hand. Brad Cage slowly raised his hands, pretending to surrender. Taking advantage of the moment the security captain was off guard, he suddenly threw his wallet at the opponent and ran away as quick as lightning. But fate seemed to be mocking him. There was only one escape route, and Brad was quickly cornered by the security captain. The security captain cautiously searched for Brad with his gun. Hiding behind a wall, Brad was like a hunter stalking prey. He suddenly rushed out, trying to snatch the gun, but the security captain held it tight. Brad flew into a rage. He threw a powerful punch at the security captain. Seeing the opponent unable to resist, Brad quickly ran away. But the security captain fired, the bullet embedding in Brad Cage's shoulder. He painfully smashed the glass door, trying to escape with an injured body. Meanwhile, Sebastian and Gwendolyn blended into the chaotic crowd in the lobby, taking advantage of the turmoil to escape. Both ran for their lives toward the waiting car, with 2 heavy bags of money in hand. Every step was like a race with death. Brad Cage tried to endure the pain, pulling Gwendolyn into the car. Then, he used his remaining strength to pull Sebastian up. But at this life-or-death moment, fate mocked them once again. Sebastian was mercilessly pushed out of the car. Sebastian looked desperately at the car fading into the distance, his heart filled with pain and helplessness. But before he could grieve, the police swarmed in to surround him. In the urgent situation, Sebastian quick-wittedly snatched a bicycle from a passerby and pedaled for his life. But not long after, 2 police cars blared their sirens chasing him, blocking his path. Sebastian braked hard on the bike, skidded, spun around, and threaded through the gap between the 2 police cars spectacularly. He zoomed down a narrow, steep road, temporarily escaping the police pursuit. Sebastian decided to abandon the bike and ran to a deserted train track. Finally, he used all his strength to climb onto a moving train. Although he had escaped successfully, there was no joy on Sebastian's face. His eyes burned with anger. He swore to make the traitors pay a heavy price. Gwendolyn also could not accept Brad Cage abandoning Sebastian. The 2 had a heated argument. Gwendolyn angrily jumped out of the car, deciding to leave the group. But the car had only gone a short distance when it suddenly stopped. It turned out Karina also feared being abandoned, so she decided to follow Gwendolyn. Thus, the gang of super thieves that once terrified the world had disbanded. Sebastian trudged back home with a heavy heart. He didn't expect Gwendolyn and Karina to be waiting for him there. Sebastian was surprised to see the 2 of them, but his heart was filled with anger. Gwendolyn apologized that he had been abandoned. She affirmed she was not like Brad Cage and expressed her firm stance. Gwendolyn made it clear that she participated in the bank robbery, not for money, but to conquer Hans Wagner's masterpieces. She added that if the 3 of them cooperated, they would have a chance to open the next safe, Siegfried, and find the final safe, Götterdämmerung. This goal was also the burning desire in Sebastian's heart for so long. Without a doubt, Sebastian was persuaded by Gwendolyn's words. After a moment of thought, he agreed to her proposal. The fate of the three of them was now linked together. A new adventure full of challenges and mysteries awaited them. But they didn't know that the real disaster was only just beginning. Revealing the mysterious Siegfried's safe, located in a heavily guarded casino in St. Moritz. What they didn't expect was that Interpol had set a heavenly net trap around the casino, waiting for them to get caught. To ensure the plan went perfectly, the police chief had racked his brain. He notified the casino about moving the safe. He believed his plan had no loopholes, but he didn't expect that this very plan would backfire. When the police chief led his men to the casino, he was astonished to discover that someone had impersonated them to change the transport time. The casino staff had moved the safe an hour earlier, without notifying them. It turned out that 8 hours earlier, a sophisticated plan had been deployed in secret. Karina had disguised herself as an Interpol officer, notifying the casino manager that the transport time would be moved up by an hour. The manager immediately contacted the bank, requesting them to send a truck to the casino to transport the safe immediately. But no one expected that Gwendolyn had secretly sneaked into the transport truck beforehand. Like a leopard hiding in the shadows, taking advantage of the moment the two transport staff were off guard, she quickly took them down. Then, Gwendolyn took off the transport staff uniform and drove the truck carrying the safe away from the casino. Meanwhile, Karina pretended to be a drunk guest, stumbling up to the rooftop to get some air. Her superb acting deceived the sniper lying in ambush on the roof. Taking advantage of the opponent's carelessness, Gwendolyn rushed in as quick as a cut, throwing a fatal punch to knock out the sniper. Her every move was decisive, neat, without hesitation. Finally, she also took the sniper's earpiece, successfully eliminating the police's eye and clearing the way for the next plan. Then Karina used her god-tier computer skills to mimic the sniper's voice, deceiving the police chief, making him believe everything around the casino was safe. Next, Gwendolyn and Sebastian put on transport staff uniforms, transforming into bank transporters. And just like that, witnessed by everyone, they successfully snatched the safe right under the police's nose unbelievably. However, due to the tight time, Sebastian decided to unlock the safe right on the moving transport truck. This was truly a mission impossible, difficult as ascending to heaven. The mysterious Siegfried safe was like a solid fortress, exuding majesty and fear. It had up to 7 dials, each dial like a difficult pass to cross. This meant the difficulty of picking the lock had increased to an astonishing level of complexity. But in Sebastian's eyes, this safe was like a unique work of art, exuding attraction and challenge. Its exquisite appearance and complex structure were like a mysterious treasure waiting for him to explore. Unable to delay any longer, Sebastian did not hesitate to start opening the lock immediately. He seriously instructed Gwendolyn to try to keep the truck running steadily. Sebastian kept his familiar style. He calmly took out his phone and played a majestic piece of music that excited people. The strong melody rang out in the cramped space of the truck, like a prelude to a great adventure about to take place, creating a special ritual in this tense atmosphere. Then Sebastian warmed up his body. He stretched and rotated his joints. Every movement was full of power and rhythm. After warming up, he bent down and pressed his ear close to the lock. Sebastian slowly closed his eyes, using his hand to gently turn the dial. The world seemed to settle in this moment, the tiny friction sounds emitting like the gears of fate silently moving. At this moment, Sebastian was highly focused, sensing the internal structure of the safe, as if conversing with this mysterious friend. He frowned, seemingly listening to the tiny sounds coming from inside the safe, trying to find a clue to unlock it, but no one realized that danger was quietly approaching like a beast stalking prey. Brad Cage, the one who had betrayed Sebastian, was now impatiently searching for Sebastian and Gwendolyn's whereabouts outside the casino. He vowed to find them before the police arrived. Sebastian was the reason his team had fallen apart. Even more hateful, Sebastian had stolen his lover, Gwendoline. Brad could not swallow this anger. Rolf suddenly had an idea. He suggested Brad check Gwendolyn's satellite location. This suggestion was like a faint ray of light in the darkness. But just as Brad Cage took out his phone, the wheel of fate turned once again. Karina suddenly discovered Brad Cage's whereabouts on her computer. This discovery surprised everyone. They were very close to each other, as if fate was deliberately teasing them. Karina did not hesitate, and immediately got out of the car to check the situation. But right at this moment, Brad Cage's phone suddenly displayed Gwendolyn's location. Rolf immediately drove to chase. Karina wanted to stop them, but it was too late. Worried, she hurriedly took out her phone, intending to warn Gwendolyn. But fate once again played a prank on them. Suddenly, a group of police swarmed in to surround Karina. In the urgent situation, Karina quickly sent a message telling Gwendolyn to run. Then she raised her hands, dropping the phone to the ground. But fearing the police chief would see it, Karina quick-wittedly kicked the phone under a rushing car, making it impossible for the police chief to find its location. Gwendoline received the message immediately. She panicked and told Sebastian they had been exposed. By this time, Sebastian had opened 4 locks. Gwendoline urged Sebastian to speed up. The police, like seasoned hunters, set a trap by offering the attractive condition of taking care of Karina's younger brother in exchange for Gwendoline's location. Meanwhile, Brad Cage and Rolf were driving at breakneck speed, filled with resentment and unwillingness, rushing toward Gwendoline's truck carrying the safe. Sebastian struggled to turn to the 6th lock. The light of victory seemed to be right before his eyes. But ironically, fate once again teased them. Ahead was a stretch of road with continuous curves, bumpy and winding. Gwendoline steered sharply, accidentally causing the lock spring to misalign and jam tight. When Sebastian tried to turn the dial, it didn't budge as if cursed. In a situation hanging by a thread, Sebastian decided to risk it all. His eyes shone with determination and bravery. He silently prayed for a good outcome. Sebastian used his hand to strike the lock hard. Time seemed to stop in that moment, and then the lock spring was awakened by a mysterious force. It automatically returned to its old position. The gears inside slowly moved, emitting a pleasant sound like melodious music. Sebastian once again miraculously succeeded in opening the lock. At that moment, Sebastian was overjoyed, his joy bursting like a tidal wave. He felt as if the whole world was cheering him. Sebastian deserved to be a new generation master locksmith. Gwendoline stopped the car at the foot of the mountain. The surroundings were strangely quiet. The whole world seemed to be waiting for something. Indescribable emotions rose in Sebastian's heart, both moved and wistful. Finally, he understood Hans Wagner's loneliness. Hans Wagner had spent his whole life creating great works. Those mysterious and solid safes were like works of art, containing his enthusiasm and wisdom. But no one truly understood and cherished them, nor did anyone understand his exceptional talent. How sad. In this noisy and bustling world, his masterpieces were forgotten like buried gems. Therefore, Hans Wagner decided to lock himself in the Götterdämmerung safe and sink with it to the bottom of the ocean. He carried his pride and loneliness, choosing a way to leave without regret, to say goodbye to this world, a world that didn't understand him. And Sebastian, in this moment, had deeper reflections on life and art. Sebastian opened the safe with mixed feelings. Inside, it was full of stacks of cash that dazzled the eyes. But they were not blinded by greed. They only took 2 bags of money as a token. They understood that money was not everything, and greed only brought disaster. As both prepared to leave, a big storm suddenly hit. Brad Cage appeared like a demon from hell, silently pointing a gun at them. His cold eyes shone with madness and possessiveness, forcing Gwendoline to return to him. But Gwendoline was not afraid. Her eyes were full of determination and contempt, even mocking Brad Cage. Brad Cage felt humiliated, flew into a rage, pointed the gun at Sebastian, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. But a surprise happened. The gun jammed. Sebastian was scared out of his wits. Brad Cage didn't give up. He cocked the gun and fired another shot. But the result was the same. He couldn't have guessed that Gwendoline had removed the firing pin of the gun beforehand. Truly a heart-stopping joke. Fate was like a dry leaf blowing in the wind, not knowing where it would drift. Gwendoline immediately drew her gun and pointed it at Brad. It turned out she feared Brad would harm innocent people, so she had secretly disabled his gun. Then Gwendoline tied Brad and Rolf tight to the truck carrying the safe. She took the money, drove Brad Cage's car, and left with Sebastian. Brad Cage boiled with anger. He swore he would kill them with his own hands, but perhaps he would never have that chance. Not long after Gwendoline and Sebastian left, the police arrived and quickly found the truck carrying the safe. The police chief couldn't believe he had so easily caught the criminal who had once shot him in the buttocks. The turns of fate were truly unexpected and unpredictable. Gwendoline didn't dare to be negligent. She drove at high speed as if racing against fate. They arrived at a coastal town. Both hurriedly got out of the car with the bags of money in hand like trapped animals trying to escape a trap. They ran for their lives toward the pier, hoping to get on a boat to escape and start a new life. But just as they rejoiced because freedom was near, fate dealt them a fatal blow once again. The police chief suddenly appeared right behind them. Both froze, despair and fear engulfing them. Unwilling to accept fate, Gwendoline drew her gun and pointed it at the police chief. The atmosphere became extremely tense. A life-and-death battle was about to break out. The police chief glared and shouted, demanding Gwendoline lower her weapon. But Gwendoline did not flinch. She decided to negotiate with the police chief. She spoke with a determined voice, demanding the police chief release Sebastian. She affirmed that the person the police wanted to catch was her. Sebastian was not a criminal. He was innocent in this matter. If the police chief didn't agree, she would fight him to the death. The police chief pondered, weighing carefully in the tense atmosphere. Finally, he had to accept Gwendolyn's request. Sebastian was choked with emotion, his heart filled with helplessness and resentment. He didn't want to abandon Gwendolyn to run away alone. But Gwendolyn hurriedly comforted him, promising that after escaping she would definitely find him and they would conquer the Götterdämmerung safe together. Finally, Gwendolyn's eyes shone with determination. She shouted, urging Sebastian to leave quickly. Her voice was full of resolve and hope. Sebastian couldn't bear to leave Gwendolyn. His eyes were filled with pain and helplessness. Every step he took was heavy. He kept looking back at Gwendolyn as he stepped onto the boat, his heart filled with sadness and worry. Gwendolyn kept her promise, so she accepted being arrested, letting the police chief take her away. Sebastian luckily escaped safely. In the final life and death moment, Gwendolyn had used her freedom to exchange for Sebastian's life. Truly, a noble sacrifice. Years later, Sebastian opened a locksmith shop, living a simple life. Time passed peacefully like flowing water. The horrific memories of the past seemed to have been buried by time. But then, on an ordinary day, two mysterious guests suddenly appeared at his shop. They brought with them the blueprints of the Götterdämmerung safe. The blueprints exuded a strange, seductive mystery. They wanted Sebastian to join their team and help them unlock this mysterious safe. And Sebastian, at this moment, felt his heart stir once again.
That's it for today's movie. See you in future reviews. So, today's episode ends here. If you found it interesting, please give me a like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to wait for upcoming videos. See you guys in the next movies. MovieSummary16 says goodbye, bye-bye.